Why are you on strike? Why are you on strike?
Because I clicked Michael Jones talking to this Muslim, and I suppose arguably, when Michael Jones said Jews should be blamed was hate speech, but the original um, channel is still standing. I mean, I don't particularly want them to get a strike anyway. I mentioned it to somebody else, and they say, um, American YouTubers have more freedom of speech than, um, you know, um, non-American ones. So I guess you should be thankful for that, maybe.
Yeah, no, people keep telling me, I don't know, how do you tell if someone's shadow banned on Twitter? Because people are telling me, oh, you're shadow banned. How do they know that?
I think it's because, if you wouldn't mind, could you tweet this? Um, Actually, I have to give you the link to this video before you can tweet it, which I'll send it to you on Telegram, um, because, well, obviously nobody knows of it. But I thought we could have a few conversations about it anyway, while we're just yakking about stuff. So I think what happens is that you could be spacing away and nobody knows, or a person tried to share it with others and others are not responding. I've said that too. I've been told that too about my X spaces. They have all kinds of tricks now, to keep us happy in our echo chamber. So what they do is, in, you can ban certain subjects. If some people want to talk about certain topics and you don't want to discuss it, you can prevent all their comments from coming up.
Okay, we were talking about eugenics before, and did you see Clavicular is supposed to be having a baby now? Did you see this?
Um, I didn't know that he got a woman pregnant. No.
Supposedly, supposedly, unless it doesn't look fake, but it might be. But anyway, it looks like he is now, this should be Clavicular. Wait, where's that? Well, now they're having a sperm racing contest. I have to read this whole article. First ever sperm racing World Cup pits horny rich bros against each other in 100-grade battle for baby maker supremacy. So I think they're going to have their sperm race. Well, here's Clav. I see Clavicular here.
Okay, but it's the trouble doesn't end when the baby is born, right? It's only just begun.
I don't think they're impregnating anyone. They're somehow racing their sperm or something like that. But they're starting to get. I was interested in Clavicular saying he wanted to get into the scheme where he was going to pay women $500,000 to have and mother his child.
Okay, but I don't think he's going to do it, right?
Okay, let's see. Wait,
he's not really going to do it. It's just a publicity stunt.
Let's see if Clavicular is pregnant.
Well, Clavicular is a man, isn't he?
Clavicular, yeah, I know, but I didn't know.
You said he's really a woman.
No. Fact check: is Clavicular really expecting his first child after a 10-day relationship? Hold on. Is Clavicular really expecting a first child? They must say. Well, let's say Clavicular is trying to get. Come on, why can't they just ever give you the answer? Okay, it looks like it was a rumor. But anyway, he was telling Andrew Tate that he wanted to pay women to have children for him. And actually, no, is he still doing that? I'm going to impregnate the most beautiful woman. Wait, Clavicular beauty contest impregnate winner. Hold on. April 2000, after suggesting a live stream impregnation competition impregnation competition involving around 500 women competing in a beauty pageant style event, with the winner to be impregnated by him. So he's promoting this, and then he's saying he wants to pay women 500 because he has the money. He wants to pay women $500,000 to have his children. So would you be for or against this?
Of course, I would be against it, because I would say you're not supposed to be having children if you're not married to each other. And he's only doing it for a publicity stunt. So, you can imagine all these attractive women, parading before him, in the hope of earning this sum of money that will, never be forthcoming. But then, they're stupid, and anybody who
Why wouldn't it be forthcoming?
Seriously are stupid.
Why couldn't it be forthcoming? Why can't he give them the money? He could give them the money. Why does
okay, well, I'm making a prediction. I'm saying nothing is going to come of it. And it's not enough for him to get some woman pregnant. He has to be a good father. And of course, he's not able to be, because he's clearly a degenerate. And I'm saying the trouble is only beginning when the child is born. It's not like, oh, I've done it. No, you've got this thing and you have to parent it. And hopefully it's not going to be, a disgrace to its parents. But if you don't look after it properly, it might, do all kinds of things that you'll be embarrassed about.
Well, let's see. I mean,
you can't. I know you just can't take the idea of parenting seriously. It's just some.
No, I didn't. Well. First of all, I don't know. You don't know that he would be a bad father. He didn't say he was going to dump the child or have nothing to do with it. So let's see. Let's see what his plans are for fatherhood. If he has the wealth. If you're a very wealthy man and you're making, $1 million a night at your nightclub, I don't see why you couldn't, be a good father and to a few children. I don't see why. It depends on how you run your life. But no, he's probably, he would probably have to clean up the rest of his life in order to become a good father, though. I mean, I don't know if he's off drugs now or on drugs. I don't really know which at this point.
Well, I mean, at the moment, he's a good-looking guy, and women probably look at him and think, fine, I'll have sex with him once at least. Okay, but he's obviously not a nice guy, right? He's got all kinds of issues, and he won't stick to one woman. He'll probably feel entitled to screw around. I mean, no sensible mother is going to bless this kind of marriage for her daughter, is she? I mean, I know.
It would depend. It would depend on how poor she was. There's lots of moms that get their girls into OnlyFans and Playboy and all this kind of stuff because they know there's no other way to get out of poverty. So I don't know.
Okay, well, mothers of a certain class will be prepared to do anything and sell their daughters into prostitution, but hopefully, respectable people would not want to, do this sort of thing or be seen to be doing this sort of thing.
I don't know. I think Clavicular, I think that he's a pioneer. I think that he's not doing it in the most wholesome way, and I definitely would have suggestions for him. But if Clavicular was willing to say, well, I'm going to impregnate with my money that I have, I'm going to have about 4 or 5 women that I prolifically proliferate with, and I will be a good father to my children, then I would applaud that. If he shows some ability to be a good father, and he would have to get off drugs, and he would have to at least he couldn't be ODing on drugs. Let's at least say that. He couldn't be ODing on drugs. But I don't know, if you're a very wealthy man, why not? Yes, have a harem and start your breeding program.
Well, no, exactly, but you just have a harem. You know that. Obviously, this is just fantasy. I mean, if you're going to be serious
about it, if he has the money if he has the money to do it, then it's, if he does it, it's not a fantasy. Anyone can do it. It
But
just
what kind of woman would go for this sort of thing?
Okay, well, I think
You
obviously
don't care.
clavicular,
I mean,
clavicular,
ultimately,
no,
you
clavicular
don't
is
care.
able. Okay, very middle class, attractive women. Clavicular is surrounded by. You could tell they're not like, they're very middle class. They obviously have good bone structure. They obviously have been fed well. They're not
The
obese.
studs, out of control
Okay,
studs. They're not
okay, well,
respectable.
they're not. Obviously, they're not like low end. He's able to get, the girls that everybody wants. He's able to get. Okay, the
Okay,
girls that everybody.
which girl? Do you even have a
Okay,
name?
all these
I mean,
girls, all these beautiful girls. You don't see him with millions of beautiful girls in his club every night. A different girl. He always has a different girl
maybe a
on his
beautiful
shoulder.
girl is a dime a dozen.
Beautiful girls are not a dime a dozen. Beautiful girls are not a dime a dozen. Women of that look and caliber are not a dime a dozen. And
Well,
maybe they're not. Maybe they're not like bitter grannies like you. But just because they like to go to Clavicular's club doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. And they do have some genetic value. They do. These women do have value. And I think you're upset that they have more value than you do. Okay, yes. and the most popular man alive right now wants them to become the mother of their child. So what does that say?
No, I think they just want to have sex with them.
Okay, well now if he shifts his tone and he says, "I'm looking to become a father now," and I wish he does talk about genetics. He talks about perfect. I wish he would just openly say, like, this is eugenics breeding program. If he would just come out and openly say that, I would very much support this, as long as he was a good father. I mean, being a good parent is the number one thing. But if he said that he was going to take this seriously and this was the route he was going to go down, and he wanted to have as many healthy, beautiful, strong, intelligent, high IQ children as possible, and he believed that polygyny was the best way to go about it, I would encourage him to change his ways. Like, do more than just beauty contests. You have to pick women for more than this. There's just that. You have to be very selective here. Their personality is very important.
Well, yes, and background and parentage and class, reputation. You don't want to be wasting time saying, yes, this woman, in theory, could be the one. No, you actually want to knock them off your list, like, she's not suitable because blah blah blah, or he's not suitable.
I'm sure he could find plenty of suitable women that would be willing to have his children.
No, I'm talking about the end product in producing offspring that grow up into adults who are not a disgrace. I mean, don't you understand how patriarchy works?
Okay, I don't see what's stopping Clavicular from getting to know 3 or 4 different women and inducting them into his eugenics breeding program. I don't see anything wrong or deleterious about that.
So what you're doing is this plan has a 99% chance of failing, and you say, fine.
You don't know. It's never. Okay, let's try. Let's see what happens. First of all, polygyny works for the human race. Polygyny works for the human race for generations and generations and generations. We practice polygyny. So we stayed alive.
Who practices polygyny in a successful way? Not even Muslims. Even Muslim men, well, most of them do not practice it because most of them cannot afford to have more than one wife.
Well,
or it's just too much trouble.
Well, then, what's his name? Clavicular should do this based on, the genes that he's trying to create for the child. He shouldn't have, 4 or 5 women competing for his attention. It shouldn't be like that. It should be based on almost like a religious impulse. Like I said, like the Bene Gesserit, like breed because you're trying to create a certain kind of child, not because you're in love, not because you have an emotional attachment or anything like that to another person. It should be like, if I were to advise Clavicular, I would be like, yes, go for the best DNA, look for the best features, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, culturally, look for these things. But he wanted to pay them. And I think that if he finds women that are capable, then I think I would laud this. I would laud somebody who's self-successful, self-made,
Yeah,
He
but
has
you,
some.
you don't care. It's just a waste, in theory, and you're prepared to entertain this 1% possibility out
No,
of
you don't. And you
and
don't
more
know
than
what you don't know what the
99%.
percentages. You don't know what the percentages are. And the men practice
Well,
polygyny
it's
and raise
highly
their families
unlikely. The,
for
the tried and
generations and
tested
generations and
system is
generations.
patriarchy.
It's
Tried and tested.
generations and
And
generations.
patriarchy
Okay,
runs on marriage. Marriage is eugenic, and you don't like it
okay.
because you'll get.
I'm sorry. If clavicular, let's just say that he is genetically desirable, which maybe he's not, but let's just say that he was. If he has enough money to start his own eugenics breeding program, it's eugenics whether he got married to the women or they were just harem wives. It's eugenics either way.
No, eugenic means you're marriageable,
Okay, well,
right? This
clavicular is
is,
obviously
I mean,
marriageable 10
if it
times
means
over.
anything,
Okay, and also, okay, and a man who can attract more than one wife is even more marriageable. If you're able to get a woman to say, I like you so much, I'm willing to share you, that shows he's even more marriageable than a man who, can't even get one wife, barely.
okay, but the idea is that we have to be
So
marriageable in
clavicular is
order
more
to call
marriageable.
ourselves marriageable.
Clavicular is more marriageable because more women want him. More women would want to marry
They just
clavicular.
want to have
So if we
sex
allow
with
this to
him,
happen,
right?
that would be eugenic because then more women would be able to marry the men they actually want to marry and wouldn't just have to be left with the straggles that were left behind because the other women took the best men and they're in single marriages and the man can't take on another wife now. So it's actually
No, the point is
eugenics.
to make women choose carefully,
No,
right?
well, you can't if you
Yes, I'm
don't
sure
have
there are
a.
lots of men who
Okay,
would
well,
like to marry.
monogamy makes it so that you don't get good choices because there's only a few good choices and they get picked up right away. Polygyny allows it so that women can all choose the best and the worst just don't get a wife. That's the way I think is good. So I
The good
support
thing,
if clavicular wants to put out $500,000 rewards to raise his child, then I'm supporting him.
but the slim chances, but you don't care
No, I don't know
because
the slim chances. I think that, look, I know there's more chances of it turning out well than my parents' monogamous marriage did. So, I'm not, I didn't come from a good monogamous marriage. So I'm not going to say, oh, the only way to do it is that way. And it always works out perfectly when you do it that way. And
do you accept that things could have been worse if your parents were never married to each other? I mean,
no,
do
I
you
don't.
accept
It
that?
would
I
depend.
mean,
I would
of course, you can
maybe
look around and
I would rather parents that never married and were compatible than parents that were incompatible and got married. I would rather if my
okay,
parents
so
never
you
had a
want
marriage
people
license
really to take
and loved
marriage
each
more
other.
seriously and choose.
Okay, it's just not
Yeah,
people
you
when they're
want men and women to take
young.
marriage more seriously. So
People
ultimately,
when
you
they're
agree with me.
young don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. They don't know what marriage is. They know nothing about it. They can't make a great choice when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You can't make a great choice.
But if you get marriage and parenting out of the way ASAP, and I guess a lot of people end up thinking, well, I'm glad I'm married at least.
Okay, well,
So
50% of them divorce. So no, at
no,
least people are,
they
at
only
least, no,
divorce
they don't
because
think that. People don't think these things that you think, otherwise marriage would stay intact. We wouldn't have a 50% divorce rate.
that's
And I'm
because
sorry, if
the government
50%,
encourages it.
50% of collapse of monogamous marriages, and I don't think it's such a big deal to say, hey, clavicular, yeah, like take on a harem and see how it works. It didn't work in my family, didn't work in my house.
No, the point is people. It's already accepted that men would rather pump and dump women and not stay around to pay for the kids, and women would like to
We're
have
not
sex
talking
with
about
more
that.
than one
Clavicular's
man.
paying.
That is what.
Clavicular's paying. Clavicular wants to pay. He's not pumping and dumping them. He's explicitly saying, I want to select you based on these qualifications and I want to give you a stipend to be the mother of my child. He's not pumping, dumping, and abandoning the children.
Well, okay. So how much money is he offering again?
500,000.
Okay, and he actually has it, does he?
Yeah, his nightclub he just opened a nightclub that makes $1 million a night. He
How
makes
can
he he makes about he can make like $100,000 a night on a stream. Like he's that up there.
really?
Yeah, he makes lots of money. He does make lots of money. I think
And all
the
because he
the lowest I heard was he was making like 100 to 200 to 300,000 a month.
well,
And now he just opened.
I am
He just
intensely skeptical.
why a lot of these people are making a lot of money off streaming. Some people make millions. That one guy was making
Millions, huh?
eight hundred
For
thousand
how
dollars a
long?
month. Okay, well, there's streamers who make 800,000 a month. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, and promote crap,
Okay, that's not the point.
and the government
The point
encourages
is
it.
that he obviously has some money because he owns a club and he's a partial owner of a club with only one other person. So he's half owner of a club, raking in $1 million a night. And supposedly, maybe not. I don't know. That's what I heard, 1 million, but I don't know. But and also he's the streamer, and you can make a lot of money from streaming. So could he make 500K probably in 6 months? Yeah, he probably could.
Okay, I'm suggesting that it'll never happen.
Okay, well, I'm
But
going to
okay,
encourage
you
him.
want to believe in it, so you will.
Well,
You want
I
to
want
think
to
that.
encourage better parenting. I want to encourage that he has very, very good parenting techniques, and that it's
Do
really
you?
well organized. Yes, I want him to. I want to make sure he has really good parenting techniques. Like, I would encourage him. I mean, I don't even know. I'm saying the idea is good, but at first I would tell him, just make sure that your life is real stable. Okay, you have money. Just make sure you're not overdosing on drugs. And
Well, he has overdosed on drugs, hasn't he?
yes, he has.
Okay, so I think he'll probably die
Okay,
young.
and
He'll
both of my
die
parents are
young.
both of my
If you
parents are
had a
probably
daughter, you wouldn't want to
okay.
marry him.
Okay, first of all, both of my parents liked alcohol, and I'm sure that at least one of them has overdosed on drugs once. I wasn't there for it. I would not be surprised if it happened. Lots of
Well,
parents,
overdose means dead,
no, well,
right?
whatever. No, not dead, but he took too much. I'm sure one of my parents has one time took too much alcohol or too much drug. I'm sure
That
half
they
the
fell
people.
over or something. Well, that's
Okay,
happened to me.
Okay, well, I'm sure half the people on the stream when their mom or dad were young took too much cocaine once or something like that. So, don't just, oh, look, so did my parents. So did a lot of people's parents.
Okay, but
Okay, so
but
you think that the whole world is just going to give up on him because when he was 20 years old, one time he OD'd on ketamine. Like, okay, have I OD'd on drugs? Yes, kind of. I've taken too much drugs. Yes, I mean I don't take lots of drugs anyway to begin with. Have I ever taken too much drugs? Yes, I have. Do I think that like automatically takes me off the list of like ever being able to be a responsible father? No, I don't. Like I think half of people's parents before they had their first child probably did a little bit too much cocaine or alcohol one night.
but Vincent, do you understand that? Because of your past, no woman, no rational woman would want to marry you if she wanted to have
Oh,
somebody
so
who's not.
where are all these women who come from perfect homes whose parents never did drugs, who just like came out
It
of these
doesn't matter about their
Okay,
past.
okay, so there's plenty of women who are just like me, yeah, whose mom and dad maybe drank too much, did a little too much drugs, partied too much. Plenty of them. They're not,
That's not a
I
disqualifier.
no,
I
it's
mean,
not.
of course, we've
Well,
all
you're
had one more
disqualifying
drink than we
50% of the
should have.
population. You're disqualifying like 30-40% of the population. Most people's parents weren't lily white, like perfect practicing
I'm
people
not
who
saying
never got drunk and
everyone's.
never did drugs. Most people do not
So,
live
so,
their life
we,
like
we,
that.
so it's a pretty low standard anyway. I'm just saying you just have to find somebody who isn't a crazy person prepared to marry you, who's able to, be a responsible parent. And you would have thought, well, yeah, that it doesn't seem that big a deal, but of course it's easier said than done. Why don't we admit that there is a problem with Westerners, finding people to marry, male or female.
Yeah, because it's not a pleasant institution. That's why.
Okay, but the thing is, having children is a terrible responsibility, and once you get it out of the minds of people that they might even want to do it, then nobody wants to do it, and now you have a
Well, no, it
problem.
used to have to be. First of all, it used to just happen whether people wanted children or not before birth control. You didn't. It wasn't like the government had to go out and say you need to have children. Like people wanted to have sex, they had sex, and then children came. But even if they only wanted to, they got eight. You know what I mean? It wasn't. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't really a choice at all. People couldn't plan out their births or anything like that. But
But
it
people
just shows.
make sure that
And
somebody
and they
wants to
and they and
marry
who
them.
Okay, and then people invented the pill because heterosexuals invented the pill because they could no longer live
And the
like
Pope
that.
thought it was a very bad thing until Catholics
Okay,
knew to
well,
use it, and
okay,
they
well, it
all
got
ignored
invented
him.
regardless, which shows enough people were sick of it that society could no longer continue the way it was going, and so there was the pot overboiled. Okay, the pot overboiled.
I'm
So
sure we
you're
all want sexual liberation. We want the pleasure of sex without the
okay. Well,
consequences
now
of
I
it.
know, but now
And, and, and,
now it's
and so
time.
for the past 50 years, we've done that. We live in a culture of casual sex where people who are not married to each other can have sex as much as they like. And I'm saying there is a problem, isn't it? I mean, don't you think there is a problem? Everybody hates each other. They're always complaining about Jews and Muslims and
That has
immigration.
nothing to
They
do with
hate their government.
free love. That no, I'm
Yes, it
hatred of
is.
Jews
It's
and
directly linked, and he refused to see it because he
no.
wrote on free love.
I'm I'm sorry. If we all we need is for the left to get back into eugenics, and then you can have free love and eugenics. As long as you say free love plus fertility cult, you're fine. Not
Huh.
you don't want to. Okay, this idea of like shrinking down the human population, getting rid of it, bad idea. Like the left needs to get into. They are the atheists. They are the ones who should be into genetic determinism. They are the ones who should be into eugenics. And once that those two they did merge, the socialists and the eugenics merged in Margaret Sanger's time. They can merge again. It's as soon as eugenics becomes popular, which Clavicular is helping to do, hopefully, I wish he would do it in a more obvious way. But the sperm contest might work, but that's not impregnating anyone. But it's still like measuring biological, I don't know, efficiency of how fast your sperm moves and stuff like that. But yeah, no, then promote it. Yeah, and promote alternative ways of reproducing like Clavicular is doing. So I have a little bit of hope that he might start a trend.
Okay, well, at least we can put his name in this title to make it more clickbaity. Talking to Vincent Bruno about marriage, eugenics, and clavicular. I think we might think we're so smart now, but this enormous difficulty I have in just getting you to understand how eugenic marriage is and your
No,
twisted refusal to do
it
so.
proves if people were complaining in 1910 about how horrible the population was, then that proves that
Who was complaining about how
okay, the
quote
president,
horrible the
Margaret
population
Sanger, all
was?
the birth control eugenicists, H.G. Wells, Havelock Ellis, anyone who was involved in eugenics at the time was not happy with the human race that was being produced.
Well, they're just entertaining new ideas, right? Without quite realizing that marriage is eugenic, and they were just reinventing the
it wasn't working
wheel.
enough. People were not happy, so they had to change it, and so
They're
they
never
changed it.
happy.
Okay, well, they're happier now. Okay, I'm happier. I'm happier that my mother had access to birth control and did not have more children than she wanted. It was hard enough with the four of us. Very difficult. She did not need another 3 or 4.
Okay, so how many children does your mother have?
4.
Okay.
Okay, well, that was difficult enough. And
Okay, fine. I mean, that's still a
okay, well,
respectable
I'm glad she had
number
access
of
to birth
children to
control.
have.
We did not have a lot of money. We had problems, feeding ourselves, and she thankfully had access to birth control, and we didn't, overextend ourselves. Well, we did overextend ourselves. We were poor, but at least it wasn't worse. So I'm glad she had access to birth control, and I didn't want her having children she didn't want. You know what I mean? Like, it was hard enough taking care of the children she wanted, let alone children she resented. So yes, I am happy that we have birth control.
Are you a favorite?
No.
Well, at least she has a choice, right? She's not just stuck with one child. Would you have wanted to be her only child?
No, I don't think only. I think I promote four as a good number, generally.
Okay, so why didn't you say that? Well, you could promote a 4-child policy in America. I mean,
Well,
China
no,
has a 3-child policy.
Yeah, you want at least a 4-child policy, yeah, in order that's a healthy growth rate, enough, diversity for, it builds families. It's good. Four is around 4. The birth rate should be about 4. So some people would have a few more, some people would have a few less.
Right. So do you think it would work better if the government promised, support for people prepared to do this? Or at least, saying that the laws would, give them tax breaks and stuff, and so society would treat them with greater respect if they, treat married parents who have 4 children with, more respect than,
Well, I don't
say,
think you can
gay
know
people
this thing,
and single people.
forcing respect.
Well, I mean, how else are you going to
Okay, it should be,
incentivize people
and this is the
to
other
do
thing about
something
people
they
like you.
wouldn't otherwise do?
Be respectable, and people will respect you. Don't you have to respect. No, if you're a respectable person, if you're a person who's doing a really good job and you have 4 kids, yeah, great, wow, that's awesome. But don't tell people who they have to respect and or respect less, and that just because somebody had 4 children, they're more respectable than a scientist who dedicated their life to physics and just didn't have any children. That's not how most people operate.
Well, we shouldn't
Most
be
people
mean to people, no, but
okay,
we
yeah,
can
no, but
still bear in
I'm not
mind what
okay.
we're supposed to do.
I don't need to respect parents more than the scientists who dedicated their life to science. I just don't. Nobody else does
Sorry,
either.
what are you saying? You don't
Okay,
need to...
I'm not going to make a hierarchy between someone who forgoed having children so they could dedicate their life to science for someone who has 4 children. I'm not going to make a hierarchy.
I'm certainly not going to say, don't become a scientist or anything like that. I mean, we know quite a few people who died
but I'm just not going to make a hierarchy. You're trying to make this imposed social hierarchy.
Yeah. So married parents are privileged over non-parents.
How are they privileged?
Just say it.
No, that's ridiculous. Just say it. What do you mean?
How
are you going to force people? You can't force this on people. You cannot force respect on people. This is a pointless. thing. You can't force respect.
The carrot and stick.
People are going
to
respect.
You must have heard about the carrot and stick. I don't know why you're having such difficulty.
People are going to respect good people who are smart and who do the right thing in society. Is who they're going to respect, and it's not going to be based automatically on how many children you have.
Look, Vincent, ever since we were children, there's when we do good work, we get a star, we get an A. There's
other ways to do good work in society besides having children, and not everyone needs to have a child. Not everyone should have a child.
To have children. So if people do things your way, aren't you going to give them some social recognition or something?
No. The social recognition is that by doing it a better way, you gain power in society over the people who aren't doing it the right way. That's the power.
So you get
I'm talking about naturally gaining power. Naturally gaining power because you're doing it better is the reward you get, not some social credit score where somebody is higher up and gets a bigger star because they had more children.
So you want to encourage people without encouraging them. You want people to do things for you the
No,
way
they
you
would get
want it without
rewarded.
rewarding them. I
They
mean,
would get social reward. They would get the social reward of being an elite class in society, having more money, having more power, having more family, having more wealth. That would be the reward. It would be its own reward.
okay, but don't you think, people who are unmarried parents should be discouraged and punished? I mean, this is the corollary. I'm just being logical.
I don't
You
know if
know,
they should be.
stick
Well,
and carrot.
no, it should be. I don't know if they should be punished, but it should become socially like just something that people don't do because it's considered, you know, it's not good for anyone to just randomly go out and have a baby without any planning. So any unplanned pregnancy, anyone, even between married people, should be considered problematic. Any child that's unwanted should be considered a problem.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea is, a married couple, they would have sex from time to time, and every now and then the woman would get pregnant. That's it. But it's okay because she's already got this partner who will, you know, provide and help because it's also his kid. I mean that's why it's like it is. Otherwise, if he thought, my wife is pregnant, but it's not my kid. Well, you can imagine how he might feel. So I mean, that is the whole purpose of monogamy. I know it sounds boring, monotonous. Monogamy is monotonous. But then
Yeah, nobody
I guess
wants
you
it.
create a religion that sanctifies people who manage to keep it together. And obviously, when you think of, okay, when I think of the royal houses of old, I guess, some alpha male leader of, the House of Plantagenet or whatever, just managed to keep control over his family through the imposition of these rules. And then they became powerful and then they became, the royal family, whatever. Well, lesser men just couldn't get it together. I mean, that's how it's done.
Okay, well, no, I mean, look, in the beginning it was polygyny. We know that. So this idea of monogamy, we practice polygyny, and there's things to be said about monogamy and how it might have reduced the quality of the human race. It could have.
No,
But okay, and this is just
please let me explain to you why society is not so stable if there's a big group of men who know they're never going to get a wife, but they're going to be rapey, they're going to be sex offenders, they're going to be wanting to kill the men with all these women.
Not if you allow them. Not if you allow them to be homosexual. Not if you allow them to be homosexual and you remove
but
that.
once you allow people to be gay.
Okay, and then you have polygyny, and then allow the upper class to have all the children, and then anyone who's, first of all, a lot of men are just gay. A lot of men are gay.
You don't understand. You need workers, right?
Yeah, I know. As long as you're reproducing, if you have gay men, but you're not, and your population doubles every generation, then you're fine.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen. It's not enough.
It happened in ancient history. There were men who never had children, and the population still grew like wildfire.
I'm not saying just because you don't have children, your life is worthless. I'm certainly not saying that. But not everybody is Mozart or, whoever. Right. And even if you did produce a lot of children, maybe your children won't be as successful as you are. It doesn't matter. But I'm saying, for general purposes, you still need a working class.
I know. Well, yeah, your working class would come from if you just allowed if you just allowed 10% of men to be gay, then 10% of men can take on a second wife. It's really not that difficult.
Okay,
just let them take on second wives. Just let them take on. What's wrong with letting a man take on?
Man have second wives.
What 10%? Okay, if 10% of men have the wealth and the ability to take on a second wife. What's wrong with that?
Do you even know of one?
First of all, it's not legal. So plenty of men would like to take on second wives. It's not legal to do it.
Where'd you get all this idea?
Well, excuse me, they were doing it in Utah. A whole civilization did it until they were forced to give it up. They didn't want to give it up. They had to give it up.
Oh, you mean Mormons being polygamous?
Yeah, well, a whole large swath of population changed their whole breeding strategy and maintained it for 50, 60, 70, 80 years or whatever it was, however long it took them to get into the Republic.
Okay, so but what is the Mormon attitude to being gay?
Okay, well,
Is it allowed?
okay. Well, just so what? Yeah, be inventive. What if the Mormons said, okay, you don't want to have children? Good, let these men. They want a second wife. You don't want a wife? Sure, fine. It probably would have worked out better. You know, there's more. Things can be, mutated, changed, improved. I'm not going on the exact Mormon model. I'm just showing Mormonism shows that you can get a large population of people to change the way they breed overnight if you have.
Yes, with the incentives or by removing the disincentives. If you say it's okay
they
to
were
be
able
unmarried
to do it.
parents, a lot of people will do it. Yeah, sure.
Okay, but if you
is
also
it a good thing?
if you also look, Mormons were able to get people to change the way how they bred overnight. So why can't a new, more futuristic way come in where breeding is done on a very scientific level? There's polygyny.
It's not scientific, it's psychological as well. You've got to make people want to do it.
No,
Yes,
I
you
know.
can
This is okay, but if he was able to make people want to do polygyny, why can't somebody make them want to do it clavicular's way?
Okay, as far as I understand it, Mormonism was saying a man can have more than one wife, or as many as he can get, provided he can support them, right?
Yes, and what if they had said, and in order to counter it so there's no men without wives, if you want to be gay, sure, go ahead. We're going to allow you. We're going to not, scare you into the closet or force you to marry women. We'll just, we'll relieve the sexual stress that way. This man took a second wife, so one man can now be gay.
Okay, so what happened to Rome, right? A lot of
Rome didn't practice polygamy. They didn't increase their birth rate. They had no plan to increase their birth rate. No plan.
Well, they thought of imposing a bachelor tax because they saw that not enough Roman parents were marrying and producing enough men to join the Roman army, and they saw it as a problem of the decline in the power of the Roman Empire. In the end, they resorted to paying mercenaries because they had lots of money, but they couldn't get their working classes to breed enough men to join the Roman army. So do you see the problem long term? Of course, it's not going to immediately.
I just said that there needs to become a new consciousness among certain people to breed in a different way. Just like the Mormons, they said, hey, we're going to breed differently now. And somehow they got these people on board. So look, I've been preaching this different form of breeding system for a while. And so now Clavicular is talking about it. He's the first one, he's bringing it at least to the world stage, not perfectly the way I wish he would, but it's
what do you mean?
At least
what's the perfect way?
Well, I think it's not that he's doing it imperfectly. I think he should just kind of talk more about how he was going to be a father and how he's going to arrange the household and raising the children together, having the wives in proximity to each other and raising the children together in a communal setting and things like that. I think that would be nice. But the point is that, okay, so here comes a new consciousness. Here comes a new example. Clavicular is probably not the best example of a eugenic cult leader, but he kind of is. He's not the best example, but he is an example.
Vincent, why don't you just support sensible ideas that could help people?
Because I'm more futuristic, and I would rather, instead of looking backward, I'd rather, to what didn't work, I'd rather allow the system to stay as it is while importing new ideas and letting them grow and take over.
Well there's already amory,
No, it's not
polyamory.
legalized, and it's not done. It's not done in a eugenic manner. It's not. It's not
Okay,
done.
so I think fundamentally we disagree about what eugenic means. I'm saying
Eugenic. Okay, if
if you produce
eugenics is
more
just
and more marriageable people,
breeding
you're
what you want to
eugenic.
breed, breeding what you want to breed, whatever it is
Who
that
is
you want to
you? Who is you?
whatever
It's
you
just
want. Okay,
you.
a community. Okay, a community of people can decide we want these types of children. Like Germany can say we
What
want
types
German
of
children.
children?
We want. Okay, Germans would say we want German children. I mean, what's so wrong with that?
Okay, I'm assuming you want them to be at least healthy. Yes, you want them to be healthy. You don't want them to
Well,
be disabled physically. You don't want them to suffer learning disability because if these are obvious undesirable characteristics in any child.
yeah, but I mean, if you have a community that is looking
People
for,
don't want to look after the disabled children.
well, my mother did, so don't
Oh,
tell me that they don't.
she basically, she tried and then now he's in an institution.
Okay, that
I
doesn't
mean,
mean that she didn't love him, and that doesn't mean she doesn't wish he wasn't
are
born.
you sure? I mean,
You know what,
I'm
Claire?
sure
Not
she
everyone's a
doesn't want
hard,
him
cold
back.
bitch like you. No, my
No,
parents
well, at
really
least
love their,
I'm
they really
honest. I
love
don't
their sick
pretend I
child.
want.
My parents love
At least I'm
their sick
honest.
child.
I'm
My
not a
par,
hypocrite.
no,
I
my
don't think
parents love their
anybody
sick
else would be.
child. My parents
What?
love their sick. My parents love their sick
Okay,
child.
okay. Well, and then the child grew up into an unmanageable adult.
Okay, so then you're also what would have happened? Also we've had this discussion. So if the child's born wrong, you don't love it. But what happens if something happens to it later and it becomes wrong? Do you
Okay,
lose your
well
love for
then
it?
you obviously have, it
You
could be
have no love for your child. So
spouse
what
or
happens?
your parent, and
What happens if your beautiful 7-year old who everything's perfect with gets a brain aneurysm? You're just gonna stop loving it. You're just gonna stop loving it because it had a brain aneurysm.
What are the consequences of a brain aneurysm?
Let's say it became really severely mentally disabled from something in the brain. Yeah, you would just stop
Okay.
loving
Well,
it.
then it's going to become a burden. It could be a parent, it could be a child, it could be a spouse. Obviously, it's not desirable. Yes.
Okay, but that's different than not
So
loving it.
arrangements.
That's different than
Well,
not loving it.
even if people didn't become, physically disabled or learning disabled, their spouse could stop loving them, couldn't they?
Okay, this is a very cruel world that you're painting where people don't love their children
Well,
when they come out.
it's already in existence. It's not like I'm going to create it.
No, well, you
People
shouldn't, that should be looked down
always.
upon. This type of thinking is thankfully looked down upon and
No,
is
I'm
not.
trying to get you to understand what it really means. Eugenics means, if it means anything at all, it means somebody who does want to become a married parent, meaning a good parent who's going to take parenting seriously, right? And you you can't be marriageable if you yourself don't want to marry. So it's not just a matter of, being smart and rich and well born and whatever. If you don't want to marry, you are not marriageable.
That
That
has
is
nothing to do
ultimately.
with loving your disabled children. That has nothing to do with
Okay,
it.
I'm not really talking about that. We're talking about eugenics, right? And we're
Okay,
saying,
well,
if all the next gen suddenly, learning disabled and physically disabled, we would think, oh dear, what have we done wrong? There's something wrong with the next generation, right?
okay, but we're not doing anything to make sure that they're coming out like that, mentally and physically
No,
disabled.
I'm saying we want to do the best for the next generation, don't we? And the government has a duty to make sure that, standards of parenting don't deteriorate too badly because it will mean bad stuff happening to the country. I mean, I'm just talking about the most obvious things. If you don't want the next generation to be all learning disabled or all physically disabled.
Okay,
That's
but
a
in what scenario is that even
crime.
going to happen? Why would that even happen in the first
There is
place?
increasing disability, isn't there? because people are saying, "Oh, you have to be nice to them. You have to give them more money." Blah blah blah. And some people have got the wrong idea, thinking I'm going to get more attention if I'm disabled in some way. And people do
Okay,
use their
no, I don't think
ADHD.
anything's happening like okay, there might be like some increase in children being born. What are we doing right now that's increasing the disability rate in children?
Well, because people not choosing the partner, their sex partner who will be the parent of their child
That
carefully. That's
doesn't that doesn't increase. That's not increasing disabilities in children.
well, is there a trend of increasing disability or not?
Okay, it's not because disabilities are not
I'm
happening
thinking
because
of
it
Minneapolis,
if
the
you're
Somalis pretending to be disabled so they can claim more money from the state. Come
okay,
on,
that's different than
it's
children
not
actually being born.
different. Well,
That's different than children actually being born disabled. That's different. Fake claims
no,
of disability are
just
different than
by
children being born
offering to give
disabled.
them more money, you are encouraging it. I'm sorry if you think that's brutal, but if you're
Well,
saying you're going to get more
that's
money if
different
you're
than people who are
disabled,
born with disabilities. That's different, and it's also different than loving your
yeah,
child
but
even if they
it's
have
like
a
no.
disability.
Do you know what the Romans did when they were being
I
sensible?
know. Well, we're not Romans, and they're also gone, so
Okay,
maybe they were
well, if
doing
you know
something
what
wrong.
happened to the Roman
Well, maybe the
Empire,
Romans did
you
something
are an
wrong.
empire.
Maybe the Romans did something wrong. Maybe that's why they're not
No,
around anymore. Maybe you shouldn't
because
throw your sick
they
infant.
stopped taking patriarchy. They stopped
Okay,
taking
well, they
marriage
maybe
seriously.
also maybe people didn't take the patriarchy seriously because they were telling women to throw mutilated infants into the river, and maybe nobody wanted to do it anymore, and they didn't like what the patriarchy was saying. Maybe that's why nobody listens
Okay,
to them
well, maybe
anymore.
there's a lot of stuff about life we don't like,
Okay,
but
well, how
sometimes
do you
we
know
have
that?
to.
How do you know people? How do you know people didn't feel bad about throwing disabled children in the river and didn't like the system and wanted it to end? How do you know?
Well, what's the alternative?
Well, I mean, being kind to your disabled children.
Well, maybe they didn't have the
For,
resources. It's
okay,
like
well,
I'm a hardworking
okay,
serf. I
so
have
then
no
just throw
time
everyone to the
to help
wayside. Whoever gets sick,
people.
anyone who gets maimed, anyone who grows old, just throw them the fuck out because they're a waste of space and time. Nobody's gonna
It's
want
a,
to live in a society
are
like
you
that.
saying that Eskimos are bad people?
Well, I don't think I wouldn't want to be raised in Eskimo where I would have been left to freeze to death or where I had to fight over scraps
But do
and
you
things like that.
accept that if you were born an Eskimo and you wanted to remain a nomadic society, build igloos and go fishing here and there, you would have to logically and necessarily have these harsh rules.
Okay, well, you would have to. Okay, well, then be inventive. Like, if try. I would want to be in a culture that was inventive enough to try, unlike things you don't, try something new. Let's make like an area where these people are taken care of or something. Try something,
You
invent
want
something.
charities and state support for disabled. Yes, and then but you shouldn't make it so obvious that if you're suffering from disability, you're going to get extra money.
Well, if you can't take care of yourself, yes, I do believe in
They have to be
in in kindness
institutionalized.
to
There
people.
has to be a
Claire, you're just so
degree of
cruel. You're
shame.
so
There has
cruel.
to be a degree of shame. It can't be
There's
because I'm
nothing wrong with being
disabled, I get more
disabled.
money. It's
No,
like
you shouldn't be
because you're
shamed for
disabled,
being
I'm in an
disabled.
institution.
You shouldn't be shamed for being disabled. You shouldn't be shamed for it.
Well, then you're encouraging people to be
No,
disabled.
why should someone who was born with a problem feel any shame? Why should they feel
Well,
shame?
because they are a burden.
It's not their fault, not because of anything they
Okay,
did.
but if
So
people
why
are
should they
helping you,
personally feel shame? They did nothing.
well, because they know they're low status, right? Because they're reliant
In
on
your
people.
mind, Claire, thank goodness most people in the West don't think like you. I don't think of these people as low
Well,
status. They
if
think of them
people
as
are
human
helping me, I
beings.
should be grateful that I'm being helped. I shouldn't feel equal to them or superior to them, should I?
I didn't
If
say
I need
superior, but
help.
they should treat you with loving kindness. And yes, there should be a level of egalitarianism there.
Okay, so egalitarianism. I mean
I
that's a
said
problem.
a level of it. I didn't say totally. I said there should be a level of when you're dealing with another human being that they deserve respect and they deserve kindness, and they deserve understanding and aid and comfort.
Okay,
Especially
but obviously, if you're learning disabled and physically disabled, you know you don't deserve to marry, right? Because at the
that
very
doesn't
least,
matter. Yeah, so what if you don't
why
deserve to
does it not
marry?
matter?
It does. Okay, well, they're
If
supposed.
you want,
Okay, well,
then you
okay,
want
well,
to afford to
we're
marry
okay. Well, I'm going to
able
promote
and
loving
mentally
these
efficient
people,
man.
taking care of these people, bringing them into the tribe, making sure that they're okay and safe. Because you know what? One day I might not be that healthy, and I want to be taken care of and kept safe and loved and not looked down on. And
Okay,
so,
and in order for people to look after you, there should be enough people to do the job, right?
okay, no, but I don't want to. I don't want to spread an ideology where people who are disabled are looked down on and meant to feel
Well, they
shame.
already are.
No, by you, Claire. I don't look down on
No,
them.
the point is, if you
You
if
look
you had
down
a
on
son
them.
or a daughter and they wanted to marry, you wouldn't say, "Oh, hey, just marry some learning disabled, physically
That
disabled
doesn't mean
person."
that doesn't mean that I care for them any less or think that they're less of a being or don't deserve,
But we're talking about
help.
marriageability and eugenics.
Okay, that's okay. Well, yes, they won't marry, and that's about it. But there's
And they
also
shouldn't marry, right?
Okay, okay, so what? That doesn't mean that they should feel any shame
I'm
or
not
that
saying go and shame them. I am
you
saying
said they should feel
we are talking
shame.
about marriageability, which I equate with eugenics. And I also made the point that you would be concerned if, say, 60% of the next generation were in some way physically disabled or learning disabled. Wouldn't you?
Yes,
And you
but
would see that
I
as
would care. I wouldn't want that
eugenic,
for
and we
them.
would want to
But I wouldn't
avoid
look at
it
the. Okay, I
as
wouldn't
a
look down. Yes, you
society.
want to avoid it, Claire. Like you want to avoid your
Yes.
child falling down the stairs, but you're not going to look down on your child if it gets crippled. Like I don't want my child to fall down the stairs, but I'm not going to look down on it or
Okay,
lose my
you're
love
not
for it.
even prepared to look after a healthy child.
No, you know what, Claire? That's not the point. The point is, if I did have a child, I wouldn't stop loving it just because it fell down the stairs.
Well, we'll see, because you're so far from that. We can say
Okay,
everything.
you know what, Claire? I mean, you're a disgusting person that you would stop loving your child because it got a head concussion and became retarded. Like you would just not. I mean, you wouldn't want to take care of it
Well,
anymore.
I am saying that nobody wants this to happen, and
Okay, but
obviously,
they still love their children. They still
who
love the
knows?
child.
Who knows? Does your mother talk about how much she loves your brother?
Yes, of course. It's obvious. It's obvious
Does
by
she
the way she
visit
treats him.
him?
She visits him all the time. My father visits him all the time. Take him out to dinner. They make a trust fund for him for when they die. All of his expenses will be taken care of. All of his clothing, all of this, all of that. Yes, they love him very much.
Okay. And do they? What? Okay, I won't ask the question.
Yeah, they do love him very much.
Is he older or younger?
He's older than me.
Do you feel that they love him more than they love you?
Maybe.
Or is it just because he's disabled that
No, they
they
might have
fuss?
loved him more. They might love him more.
I suppose with some disabled children, I mean, they don't really do anything to, I guess, annoy their parents. Or if they do, they're excused because, they don't have full legal capacity. And I guess, the kind of treated like pets, unlike their, normal children who might do things that, would annoy their parents, I suppose. So I guess they get a free pass.
A little bit. Sometimes, yeah.
But the point is, we don't want increasing numbers of the next generation to be disabled, because we would think there's something wrong with what we're doing, and we have to reverse this trend. And I'm sure if you look up any statistics about the trend on physical disability and learning disability, I'm sure it's going up. And this is a matter for concern, isn't it?
Okay, but what's causing
Or
that is the
rising
question.
crime. Huh?
No, well, I don't know about crime, but what's increasing? I want to. I don't know if like it's there's a difference between you're bringing up people misusing disability benefits and saying that disability is increasing. That's not, you can't use misuse of disability benefits as an example of increased of childhood disease.
Have we discussed the 12 tables of Rome, Vincent?
No, I'm sure, and I know one of them was about throwing the infants in if it had a limb missing or something like that.
The patriarch of the Roman family would have the power of life and death over his children. Yes, once upon a time, that was the
Yeah,
rule.
well, that's kind of
And because
brutal.
every Roman had the duty to produce for Rome healthy children. That was written into the 12 tables of Rome. And we know that the Greeks also, that they would expose infants if they, well, even if they were perfectly healthy, they didn't want it was born under an unlucky star. This was a story of yes, Paris, Prince Paris of Troy. He was, well, he grew up into, a handsome young man, and he met his parents again, and his parents went, "Oh, how could we have done such a thing? He's so wonderful. He's so, tall and handsome and strong, and we must invite him back." And then he eloped with Helen of Troy and started the Trojan War, and which ended in the fall of Troy. Yes, that's a story if you know it.
Mhm.
But I'm saying, it's linked. Morality is linked to sexual morality. It's linked to most people in your society being responsible married parents. And if they're not, bad stuff is going to happen. It's universal, right? It's not just white people, it's any people. And you can see how it would happen. Obviously the children are not going to, become desirable employees if their parents are, not bringing them up properly, not caring about their education, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing mysterious about any of this. And I keep going on about Rome because, after a while it became kind of fashionable to practice pederasty because it's like, yeah, men are horny, they go to war, they had sex with each other, and probably in time more and more of these Greeks and Romans thought, well, we prefer this kind of sex to sex with women. We only have sex with women if we want children, but actually we have more fun being gay men. And we
Well,
know what happened to these civilizations. I'm just telling you. I'm not being mean to you or whatever. I'm just saying, if you want, if you want to do, if you don't regulate sexual relations, then bad stuff is going to happen. And historically and universally, monogamous societies are the most stable ones. And for a while, Western men were monogamous because of Christianity, right? There was no monogamy in Judaism until the Jews came to live with Christians, because obviously the Gentiles would get annoyed with the Jews if they had more than one wife. And so they became monogamous too, in the same way that the Mormons had to, well, accept it when, um, non-Mormons in their society said, we're not going to be outbred by Mormons because then they'll take over. And when they take over, there will be a problem of all these men who know they're never going to be able to find a wife. It's more unstable. That's all I'm saying, right? Because if you give people
that's only assuming that all these first of all, how many men are going to take how many wives? And if you just lift the restrictions, the cultural restrictions on homosexuality, then you would have tons of men that would say, I don't want a wife. Take her. I don't want her. I would love if you practice polygamy. Take her away from me. Don't make me marry her. Don't make me get married at all.
Nobody, well, very rarely people will force it. It sort of, I think it's generally understood that you can't, force people to marry another person, because then they will hate the other person, and then they'll hate each other, and their children will be horrible. So, that's why you have this romantic idea about, men and women loving each other as husband and wife and blah, 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 right?
Yeah, but that's not reality.
The reality is that we would prefer to screw around, all of us.
Okay, as long as you
And
use
if we're
birth
allowed to
control,
do that,
as long as you
that's
use birth
what happens to
control,
our society.
as long as you use birth control and you plan to at least have 4 children, that's the mentality that needs to be instilled, that you have to direct your procreative powers and have at least 4 children as a society per woman. And it can't be unplanned. You need to have plans that you're going to take care of this child before you have it.
Yeah, so that's what the wedding ceremony is for.
Okay, well, we've moved beyond that. Anyway, Claire, I'm sorry, I do have to go.
Okay.
Okay, we've been talking. How long have we been talking for? Oh, an hour. Okay, that was a good run.
An hour. That's good enough. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Vincent, take care. Bye.